Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Malik Rahim, and I am the president of the National Association of Black Counselors. And I'm continuing our interviewing and podcasting of interviewing great individuals from our community. And today I have one of my illustrious former students, Miss Jacqueline Johnson, and she's going to be we're going to be kind of talking about some of the things that are going on in the black community, and probably focusing a lot on the wellness of black women. And so, please sit back and enjoy. And I'll let her introduce herself and let her tell everyone what she's been up to. Jackie.
Okay, well, my name is Jacqueline. Um, I just recently became licensed not too long ago, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Thank you. I am currently, I don't know, I'm currently 32, going on 33 in a few days.
Congratulations.
And I predominantly work with individuals within the LGBTQ plus community. Um, However, will be venturing into a new area and I'll be expanding even further with my clientele starting in August, September area. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm also quite nervous. I have a lot of anxiety myself, so please bear with me.
You're gonna do fine. You're gonna do fine. This is one of my more better students. Don't let her fool you. She's soft spoken, but she has a lot of passion and a lot of knowledge. Um, when let's start there. You said you just recently got licensed, and you've been doing a lot of work lately with the LGBT plus community. Um, what kind of dynamics can you talk to us about as far as the similarities on microaggressions and oppression that's going on with that community, as well as happening in the larger framework of the black community?
Okay, so it cut out just a little bit. So you said microaggressions and
Some of the microaggressions, the similarities, some of the microaggressions that's happening in the LGBT plus community, as well as in the larger framework of the black community as a whole.
okay. So there are definitely similarities, although I do like to separate.
Okay.
Um, just because what I've noticed lately is a lot of people are now having like a discussion because Pride Month just ended, and there's a big discussion on um, those within the LGBTQ plus community obtaining like a month for themselves to support and praise the LGBT those within the LGBTQ plus community. But then there's also talks about like how more difficult it was for Black people to get a month. So there, I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of the community is starting to kind of like overlap the both of them, almost
Okay.
like we're the same, and it's completely two different situations going on here. Um, but as for the LGBTQ community, I'm seeing that they deal with a lot of microaggressions, particularly more like in the healthcare.
Okay.
Um, it's extremely hard for those within the LGBTQ plus community to receive proper healthcare,
Okay.
especially when you get to individuals who identify as transgender, non-binary, and they want to go into a process of transitioning to their gender. And there's just so many hoops that they have to go through. Um, I don't know if I should go into too much detail about that, but there's a lot of hoops.
Hmm.
Um, I have witnessed a few other, their journeys, and it just takes so long just because of people's views about them.
Hmm.
And some more often than not, they get declined. Um, medical care. Then they have to go through appeal processes. I've seen some of my clients go through two appeal processes. It could take years for them to even get medical support in that field. And then if we're going to go even further down, I'm noticing that some of my clients who are within the Black and Brown communities
Mm-hmm.
have an even tougher time
Wow.
achieving care.
Because they're also dealing with a lot of incidents of like double oppression, or even triple oppression sometimes because of
Mhm.
the fact that they're black or they're brown. So they had a racial component, then they had a sexuality component,
Mhm.
um, and and it's like there's a lot of self hate within the communities that they're coming from as well,
Yeah.
because you have the machismo or the black masculinity tropes and things like that that they have to deal with a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah. And even gender too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I noticed that particularly with transgender individuals, those who are assigned male at birth, going to male to female, have it a lot more difficult than opposite. So those who were affirmed female at birth transitioning to male.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Um. Now I know that if I remember correctly, I'm getting old, as you can tell by some of the gray hairs. Um. You had a strong passion for your identity as a black
Mhm.
woman, and I kind of want to see if we could touch on a little bit of that as well in this brief conversation because um, one of the things I noticed, I do this pseudo research on the internet, and I noticed these edge lords, what I call them, black edge lords, that it seemed like everything that happened in the black community is the black woman's fault on YouTube, and may rest in peace. I don't wish death on anyone, but one of their main preachers, their pastor, their prophet, was this brother named Kevin Samuels,
Yes.
and it's like, and I'm not like I said, I have, kind of a neutral opinion on him. It's like something he did was good, something he did was harmful. Me personally, I like to think that it's like when you're trying to make black people act a particular way, is usually dipped in white supremacy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know how I am with that. So, but it's usually dipped in white supremacy when it says you got to act professional, you got to act a certain way, you got to wear your hair a certain way, and then when you compare black women to other women, it's dipped in white supremacy. Um, so as this whole battle seems to be happening in our community, what do you think? What is your take on the mental health of black females in general? Because black females, since I say even recently in the 70s when the Monahan report came out, was blamed for everything that happened in the black community, right? So it's like I kind of want to hear some of your thoughts on the mental wellness of the black woman
Mhm.
because and can we center a little bit of our conversation around that? So what are some of your thoughts about the mental health of the black woman? I know it's going to be, some people are going to say it's going to be controversial, but I want the true Jacqueline Johnson to come out and say what she has to say.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure this is going to stir up some. Kevin Samuels has been a heavy topic in my household
Okay.
for quite a few months. I have my husband is completely not for Kevin Samuels, but I, however, had very mixed views regarding Kevin Samuels. Um, Actually, Kevin Samuels has helped, even though I'm married, I know he predominantly worked with like women who are single. He helped me in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's been it's sad.
Mm,
It's sad. It's sad to be a Black woman, like dealing with my own stuff, and then it's also really sad, hearing different stories and working with other Black women, my friends. We all have a very similar experience, different, but it's very similar.
okay. Would you mind expounding on that a little bit
There's just so many
without
areas.
giving away anybody's identity or?
um,
Let me see if I can help you out. It not being a black woman. I'm not a black woman, so it's like I'm just going off of some of the things that I've heard or seen. Um, and I think one of the issues I have with the black edge lords, who use Kevin Samuel's talking points to an extent, and it's like I agree with you. It's like some things Kevin Samuel said were dipped in some truth, but some of the things he said was exaggerated and sometimes too heavily to where like I know early on he went after black men and told
mhm,
black men how to get our act together, but the later part of his career, especially when he really got large, he was going toward black women a lot, and so the thing is like even in some of the things he said, even if you didn't agree with him, some of the stuff he said was dipped in truth, right? Um, but with that being said, one of the things I guess I'm changing the topic a little bit. One of the things I noticed is a lot of what I call the black edge lords would not take accountability.
yeah.
They wanted the black woman to take total accountability, like
Mhm,
see.
mhm.
And I remember seeing a video on I don't know if it was YouTube or one of the other platforms like TikTok or anything like that, but this young man asked this young lady for her number. I want to say they were like outside, maybe like the New York area,
Oh yeah.
and he asked her for her number, and she said no. So he took a skateboard and he slammed it across her face.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like some of the reactions from some of the edge lords was like, see, that's what all these masculine women get,
Yeah.
right? And not holding that brother and not holding that brother accountable to the sense to where it's like, I'm old. I'm old. I'm not ashamed to admit I'm old because unfortunately a lot of black men don't get to be my age,
Mhm.
right? They don't get past the age of 40 from where I live, Chicago, because the number one cause of death for black men is homicide
Yes.
and it's violence. So it's like to be over 40 is a blessing in this world. But one of the things when I was growing up, I was always under the philosophy of provide and protect black women, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it seems like that is dying away from the black male perspective, and sometimes from the black female too, to where she thinks that she's too independent and she doesn't need the providing or the protection. And I've heard some sisters say black men are trash, just like I've heard some of the brothers you know go after black women like all and make it like an all or nothing. But it's like when you look at the mental health of our community, I look at the so-called gender wars that seem like they're happening now. I guess they've always happened. I just wasn't never aware of it because I had my head in the sand, thinking everything is cool. But um, one of the problems I've noticed is that no one wants to take accountability. So if you can give a message to black women as far as you know their protecting their mental health, not only as a sister but as a therapist, what would you tell them?
I would tell, and this is actually something that I do talk to some of my clients who are Black. My biggest thing is I really want them to understand that it is okay to prioritize their mental health. It is okay to have boundaries. It is okay to pull away from toxicity,
Mm.
because toxicity, it runs deep. And a lot of, I mean, it ran deep in my own family, especially when it comes to like religion and different things like that. There's just so many different areas of it. So my biggest thing is just to really help Black women know that it's okay to not be okay and to also take care of yourself, however that's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was something that, okay, so when you mentioned earlier about, Black women kind of taking the brunt of all of this, we're the ones that, have to be responsible for everything or being made to be responsible for everything and, being called masculine. And to me, those are they're annoying because it's like the men are I'm sorry, the edge lords. I'll say the edge lords. I like that term, Dr. Rahim. It's like the edge lords are wanting us to not be masculine, but at the same time, they want us to take charge. And those go completely against one another. And I would love for Black women to live the life that they want to live, but also to understand that it is okay to be soft. It is okay to not be strong and having to carry the world on your shoulders and just uplifting everyone and neglecting yourself in the process. Like it's okay to take that step back. And that's one part of Kevin Samuels that I did appreciate just a little bit, although I don't know, it's very, I don't know, I don't know, there's like he would say some things and then he'll go back on it and then he'll say some things and go back on it. But there were some moments where I felt like he wanted men to take charge and for women to take a step back and be more feminine. And that's something that I did pull from him because I was raised to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And I was noticing that that was playing a really negative role, not only for my own mental health, but also within my marriage. And it was funny because my husband actually was wanting to be that person to encourage more traditionalism. And I would push him away because it was like, no, that's my role. I need to be strong. I need to be independent. I need to be a boss. And it wasn't until Kevin Samuels started talking about that where I realized I don't want to be any of those things. I just want to be soft. So I allowed myself to be that, and I allowed him to, do what he wants to do, which is to be the head of the household. And my mental health has got a lot better from that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I found in my anecdotal research is I think because of the oppression throughout the centuries that as a black community we had to suffer through circumstances, black women were forced to be strong.
Hmm.
And what I mean by circumstances, you look at the Jim Crow era, you look at the different World War I and World War II, even though they were technically during Jim Crow as well. A lot of black men disproportionately were being drafted into the military, even though we didn't have full citizenship. And then you have a lot of black men now, through the years, being incarcerated through mass incarceration. And so, because of the oppression of the entire community, I look at it to where the black woman had to be able to be strong, to be not only be able to take care of herself, but her family, right? And the black man was never really allowed to have full masculinity,
Hmm.
right? Because if you were too strong in Jim Crow era, you were lynched,
Hmm.
right? So it's time that you had to subjugate yourself to white people, where you couldn't look at a white woman, you couldn't speak back to a white woman, you couldn't look at a white man, you had to look away, right? Um, and it's like I found that you have a lot of that still going on in black men. Then you have a lot of us brothers that want to be able to provide and protect, and we want our women to be soft, as Kevin Samuels and yourself say, but a lot of us don't know how to fully create an atmosphere for you to feel safe, so you can feel soft, so you can be vulnerable, right? Because sometimes when we think about submission, our definition of submission is you got to be subservient and do what I say as I dictate things. But my definition of submission is loving you so much that I do everything I can to protect you, right? So it's like, in order for me to ask you to submit, I got to create an atmosphere where you feel safe, right? And the submission, in a sense, kind of go both ways, because if not, it's a dictatorship. So it's like I gotta be able to submit in a sense to where it's like I'm doing everything to make you feel safe and comfortable, right? So when they say you gotta treat her like a queen, that's what it means. You gotta make her feel safe, to where anything, just about anything you ask, you know that I'm gonna do everything I can to make you feel comfortable and to be able to get it for you, right? Now, I don't mean you come up to me and say, you know, I need a new Mercedes. You gotta get it tomorrow. Like, I'm not talking about nothing like that. But within the means, and we work together, you know, in a partnership to be able to make our household flourish. But it's like for you to feel safe, to where you know that nothing at harm is going to really come to you, right? And I think a lot of our edge lords don't really realize that, because they look at submission as being subservient, right? So she's supposed to submit to me. I'm supposed to be the dominant one, but you know, you don't even know how to buy a pair of socks, right? You know, how's she gonna submit to you when she don't feel safe? And I don't mean in the sense to where it's got to be just physically safe, but mentally, spiritually safe, right? Where when she sees you, she feels safe. Um, I know you love my story, so I'm gonna tell a story before I let you go. But one of the things I have a friend, and we was working together at this university, and she was like, it's Grand Canyon University. We were working together, and she came to Chicago to visit her friend. So she had came. She said she told me that, hey, I'm in town. So I was like, okay. So we went and hung out, because she always said she wanted to go to Portillo's so we could get a Chicago dog. So I went and took her to Portillo's, a restaurant. She didn't order a hot dog. She ordered a burger. I was so pissed off. It wasn't no problem. Like, you tell me you want a hot dog, but you get a burger. So we sitting there eating, and I asked her a question. I said, I have to ask you this. Why did you want to be my friend? We knew each other was online, and I'm like, why did you want to be my friend? And she said, I don't know, it was something about you that felt genuine and you felt safe. To where it's like, what I see is what I get. You have these principles, and you're going to stand by these principles, and you're not going to back down from these principles no matter who's asking you. You got this, right? And so she said, it reminded me of my dad, right? It was this strong energy, but compassionate. And I was like, oh, okay, you get the hot dog, But that's what I mean about being able to let the black woman feel safe. So it's like, I would like, when I worked at Fresno State, had two colleagues, beautiful colleagues, right? And, even though my attitude was, even though they have significant others, I want them to feel when they come on campus that Dr. Malik is not going to allow anything to happen to them.
Yeah.
Right? And I wanted their significant others to feel, well, as long as Malik is there, I know things are going to be held down till I get there. Right? And it's not about, well, I want your woman. Right? It's about, we a community. And as a community, we got to have a holistic approach. And I got to look out for them because they're black women.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I have a disagreement with you, we gonna do it in the closet, right? Not in front of mixed company, right?
Yeah.
But so it's like, I hear you, what you're saying about you want to feel soft, and my thing to that is that's beautiful, and I will encourage brothers to work on creating an atmosphere so our sisters can feel safe to be soft.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's exhausting to feel opposite of that.
Yes. All the time.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. And I thank you for sharing that story. I have a question for you. Do you feel like other African Black males do you feel like there's a large amount of them who have the same views as you do? Or do you feel like the man who you are is starting to become more and more rare?
Um, I think there are more men like me than we realize. Um, Sometimes we don't have a platform to actually, verbalize what we feel, because you have these edge lords taking over like TikTok and YouTube, and doing these YouTube channels talking about being alpha males and all this stuff, and all this, they're Trump supporters, and if you want to vote for Trump, you can vote for Trump all you want to, but they degrade black women by saying that they're not soft and beautiful like white women, and I'm not disking, white women, but it's a part of white supremacy when you're going to compare your own to another culture in a negative light. White women have their significance, but there's nothing like a black woman. Nothing like her. My mother was a black woman. My aunties, my cousins, um, any woman I ever dated, or just about any other woman I ever wanted to date that didn't want me. Women that I wanted that didn't even know I existed, like Lupita Nyong'o. If you ever get this video, Lupita, I'm looking for you. But but what I will say is that we don't have we don't have necessarily the platform that they have. So it would seem like they outnumber us. But in actuality, they like to call us what they say simps.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's like in actuality, the real thing about it is that um, there are more brothers out there that are like the Russell Wilson type than the Future type.
Yeah.
You know, so and even the ones who think they're the Future type, you know, they find out that they're really the Russell Wilson type. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
so, but I think some of the brothers, just don't know about what it takes to make the atmosphere for a woman to feel safe, right? And I mean, they're going to be outliers out there. So it's going to be sisters out there that's going to be just totally disruptive and argumentative because they have trauma, and that's the way they express themselves because of that trauma. And then you're gonna have brothers who are either on the verge of being edge lords or already edge lords because they have trauma, and that's how they define themselves as masculine, and that's what they think masculine for to be, right? But in actuality, I think once they learn that men, brothers, are not just exclusively masculine, we have feminine energy too, right?
Yes.
And in order to truly be masculine, you have to feel comfortable being vulnerable. But at the same time, you got to have that sister that creates a place where that brother can be vulnerable
Yeah.
and not, degrade him if he is vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it's like I think there's more like me than are given credit, you know. So yeah.
Just seems like there's so much trauma just within the Black community alone where we're kind of doing this, like we're separating and we're not matching with each other. But there's definitely, in my opinion, there's definitely room for our community to come back together and change things for the better for us to continue to thrive.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think one of the things we have to do is we have to hold each other accountable.
Mhm.
You have to hold sisters accountable when they're making mistakes,
Mhm.
and I have to hold brothers accountable when they're making mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's like the cracked egg analogy I used in multicultural. You just tap on that egg, and eventually it's gonna crack. Right? It might take longer sometime, but it's gonna crack because they're gonna start realizing, they're making mistakes. So we have, if we really want to save our community, and I think it's like you said, it's a lot of hurt and trauma, right?
Mhm.
And that's their protective factor that they throw that shield up to look tough, both men and women,
Yeah.
right? And and instead of appreciating each other and understanding that in order for us to really thrive and really get a good community, we're gonna have to work together, right? Unfortunately, there's so few of us that's able to have a one income household,
Yeah.
right? But you know, when we come home, we have to be supportive. And one of the things that I make sure I turn off whenever I'm dealing with a friend comes to me and start telling me about a problem, especially a sister, because my defenses come up when I start talking to a sister, and she start telling me an issue. the first thing I want to do is go into Professor Dr. Malik Rahim mode and solve something,
Mm.
right? Instead, I keep telling myself, just listen, just listen. If she needs answers, she will ask for it. Just listen. Don't try to solve anything for her. Don't rescue her. Just listen. Give her a place to vent, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us brothers got to learn that, because one of the first things we do is we listen, not necessarily just to respond, but to solve it, to fix it,
Hmm.
right? So you come home and you start telling your husband about the problem you had at work. First thing he's thinking about is, I got to solve this problem. No,
Hmm.
just listen, right?
Hmm.
Just listen. Keep up with the story and just listen, right? Because down the line, you're going to have to hear about who's Rachel again, and you got to be able to make that connection. So just listen, right? And that's one of the hardest things as men that we have to get used to, and that is in turn creating that safe space where she can come and talk, and you're gonna be there to listen, right? Because if she wanted you to solve the problem, she'll ask you, "What do you think I should do about this?" Right? But a lot of times it's just they just want someone to listen. So put football on mute. Your team probably losing anyway. You know, especially if you're a Bears fan. Just put it on mute. Probably losing anyway. So that's what I say. So it's like, yeah, I love this talk. I love this conversation, because there's, as far as the black communities, black men and black women, as far as relationships are concerned, um, yeah, women do have to be softer. Men have to be more vulnerable,
More vulnerable. Yeah.
and women do have to submit, but men have to have a place to make them feel comfortable to be able to feel comfortable to submit to, right? Um, I watched this movie a long time ago called Jungle Fever,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And the funny thing about it is, a lot of times people, when I tell the story, they think I'm about to tell about the affair that Wesley Snipes character had with the young lady. It's not that. I always want to talk about the relationship that the Halle Berry character had with the Samuel L. Jackson character, the two crackheads, as you would call it. He does a derogatory term, but back in the day, that's what they were, right? And as even though they had nothing, they had a sense of she felt safe, right? To where it's like she knew that somehow he was gonna hustle up and go find a place for them to get some drugs to get high and do all that stuff. Um, and in turn, she submitted to him.
Mhm.
When you look at the Wesley Snipe character, it's basically the same thing, especially with his original wife. Um, they had a sense to where it was a vulnerability and a safety. And so that's what I would encourage. I would encourage brothers to go out and cheat on a woman. No, 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 no. Don't be taking this from the conversation. What I'm encouraging you is to create an atmosphere, to where she feels safe around you. She feels protected. Um, and you don't necessarily need large amount of material things,
Mhm.
and that's the analogy I want you to get from the Samuel L. Jackson character being a crackhead. You don't necessarily need a large amount of monetary or material thing to make a woman feel safe, right? Is not only just physical, it's emotional and spiritual, and making her feel that you're not going to take advantage of her, you're not going to abandon her, You're not going to leave her. You're going to be there to help guide her, right? You're going to be there to help protect her. You know, you're not going to intentionally do anything to hurt her. She wants to feel safe. And that's a lot of times what us brothers and especially edgelords don't realize is that's what, especially black women want. Because, like you said, black women for so long have never had the opportunity to have that.
Yeah. 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 And then also when we do have opportunities to have it, it really takes a lot of self-awareness um to, take that step back, because my mother too also was quite masculine as well, even though, there was an environment for her to, be able to take a step back as well. It's like ingrained, super ingrained, which is why I do feel like it's important for Black women to go seek out mental health
Yeah.
help and to work on yourselves.
That's part of that intergenerational trauma that's been brought up from slavery.
Yeah.
You had black men and black women being sold off.
Yeah.
Um, so, as much as she probably loved him, I can't trust he's gonna always be here,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because he could be sold off. Um, one of it's like even with like I want to say it was um the movie with can't remember the name of it, but it was about Nat Turner. But there was a scene in there where the the master was having a party and he wanted some of his best girls to come and satisfy his guests.
Mm.
And um, one of the women was played by Gabrielle Union. And I remember she talked about this because apparently she in earlier in her life was sexually assaulted, and she was talking about how this brought back memories of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the the guy who was playing her husband was begging the master not to take her because he was like they had just gotten married like not too long ago,
Okay.
and he said no, she's one of my best ones. And the look on his face and the look on her face when the master took her to the big house to have sex with his friends. And it's like, as a man, as a black man, it like that hurt me so much because I was like, I couldn't have been that strong. I would
Yeah.
have died. I mean, literally, I would have died. I would have got to get killed that day.
Yeah.
You know, because you not taking her, you know. But at the same time, I'm looking like he got to be smart because they're gonna kill you and they're gonna take her anyway, right? But
Kind of like the Butler movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like the things that we had to go through as a people, and like now you got you looking at your husband like you couldn't even protect me from that, and he looking at you like you let them do that,
Mm.
right? And that kind of distrust been carried down generation to generation. And because of the fact our conditions really never changed. When you really think about it, our conditions really never changed. It's not as overt now as it was back then or during Jim Crow, right? But I mean, you have this whole I remember the debate going on between the Will Smith Chris Rock thing, of
Mm-hmm.
him getting up and slapping Chris Rock. And I remember telling that person, I was like, is that the smartest thing to do if you're in the street? Because where I'm from and where I'm at now, I've seen people get killed for less than that. You know, it's like if you say something to some of these little cats, they got guns and they'll shoot you. If you look at them wrong, they got guns and they'll shoot you. Right? So it's like, where is it that you have what do you have to do for the protection? Then it's like the thing I keep telling people is he protected her. Did she protect him? Right?
Yeah.
You know, he went up there to slap and take care of Chris Rock for disrespect to her. But
Mm-hmm.
did she protect him by saying, "Don't worry about it. This is your night," right? Or
Yeah.
even if he got up and went and did it, did she come out and say, "I stand by my husband," right?
Yeah.
So did she protect him? So that's that's the concern I have, to where it's like, is she feeling safe enough to be vulnerable and soft? Because it's like, not knowing either one of them, is she still holding on to, as you called it, that boss mentality, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, because you can ask your husband, he probably will kill to do anything to protect you from somebody hurting you, right?
Yeah.
My question is, what would you do to protect him, right? And so it's like, that's sometimes what we got to look at in the community, is that it's it's not just a one-sided problem. It's not just a woman problem. It's not just a man problem. It's a us problem. We, as a community, got to resolve this. So
I agree 100%.
it's so good seeing you.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for, inviting me here to have this discussion. Although I was super nervous.
No problem. You did a great job. Is it anything you want to send out, as far as like, if anybody wanted to contact you, if there's any kind of way they can contact you? If it is, it is. If it's not, it's not. Don't worry about it. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to, like, if you have an Instagram page, people can follow you, a Facebook page, or whatever.
Well, yeah, my Instagram. Oh, I don't even know what my Instagram is. It's like, I think it's simply dot. Why am I blanking right now? Okay, yeah, simply dot Jackie. So that's simpli dot JACQUI. I do also have a website that I am hoping to get back to, where I'm going to be creating a lot more blogs.
Okay.
So that's simplyjackie.com. Um, and I'm not on Facebook like that. So I
Okay.
don't think that'd be.
So Jackie.com, that's Jackie.
Oh, JACQUI.
JACQUI
UI. Yeah.
.com.
Yes,
Okay.
simplyjackie.com. Um, I'm hoping to get back to it once I transition out of the job that I'm currently at and going to this new platform. I'll have a lot more time to just be able to do some more things that I have passion for.
Okay. Well, everybody be on the lookout for her blogs. I'm sure they're going to be great. And thank you for coming.